Yeah, I mean sustainability really. I think it was a part of the course which we were asked to, what does it look like to prepare for a sustainable future with Black Mountains College. Very cool place. I think they've got their I mean it's a big job educating people not to rely on comfort so much, or a particular sort of comfort.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of come out of that, and that also I wanted to use it to put to really analyse what the food library is doing.
Yeah.
What is the food library? You know, and to use that academia world structure, and it needs to be rewritten, which I'm trying to kind of chase now really.
Yeah.
Just to rejig it around a bit, but that, do we write a manifesto is a word that we can, has been used, and I think that there's been a lot of that. I went to quite a utopian, I had quite a utopian education at Dartington.
Okay.
Which doesn't exist anymore. It's a lot of other things, but it was it was 300 students. We had really big grounds. It was 600 years old as a sequence of buildings. The brutalists had been in and done some amazing structures as housing on the estate. They were really kind of advanced, and we were asked a sequence of, I think, really fundamental questions. So we were given an esoteric sequence of education systems toolbox, dropped into Rotherhithe or Plymouth, and then launched into to offer a series of tools and approaches and structures in order for working class culture to tell their own narratives in very different ways as well. And there was a 25-year plan, and I think they got not even 10 years into the structure and they were taken out. But we were just asked, what could it be? Dance, what could it be? And as soon as it was primarily the dance lecturers who asked us that. Steve Paxton, really important guy, really interesting human being, but also a really great friend, Mary Fulkerson, and it was, they came out of a particular era, post-war, 50s, 60s, John Cage, Monica Cunningham, Rauschenberg, and they were, really questioning how to communicate in a frame with music, with dance. 433 came out, and they were just turning everything on the head. So being asked what could it be, and carrying that forward, in anything you can ask that, and you either go dark side or you go, this could be really great fun, which can also be quite dark, I suppose, depending on, as we see, do you know what I mean? I mean, there's very clear barriers, divides going on. I think at the moment, I think it's quite clear, there's no muddy waters. I just think it's quite clear what's going on. And so for me, it was asking, I've always kind of asked that, and that you kind of engage with the landscape and the people around you. It's a thing that is just very simple for me to do, and I think that's what we do in the food library. We are basically going, we are at a particular point with food, and no other point in human history have so many been fed by so few. And that's mind-blowing, that actually we are just being fed. And whether we want to, or whether we've been educated with that through a kind of 50-year plan, kind of post-60s, I think, 1970s, I think it really kind of kicked off. Introduction to supermarkets into this country. and just the dissolve of being very, you know, hands-on with your own food produce.
Yeah.
And I think with the development of art practice, well, that was what it was. What you did was that you gave the tools to write, perform, design, put on shows, and I think it was a great liberator, and in a way I'm just using food as a material. I think it's the most, for me, the most important thing that I can deal with, because it also deals with the planet.
Yeah.
So it just enables me to cover a lot of bases. What do I want to do for whatever time I have left on the planet as a living human being? What do I want to do with it? And it was a great question to ask. I really enjoyed the arts a lot. I always thought it could change the world, and I think it does in pockets. But I had also done a lot and enough for me to go, I want to learn, you know, and it was a learning process that I wanted to go through, and I'm quite intense with that. And I think if you can hand over the skills and knowledge and information face to face, it's a great thing to do, because we are at a particular point of our species on a planet which is going through a whole series of dramas that are pretty massive. I think they've always been going on, it's just that because they're affecting us, we hear about them every day, but there's always been more. We just don't hear about them, we don't get involved in them. There's always been starvation. But I think the food that we're producing is really affecting the planet that we have, and I really wanted to learn where food came from. Having been on a farm for 2 years when I was in Devon at Dartington, I kind of wanted to go back to the earth. I wanted to explore the how-tos, and I've grown food for quite a while, but this really puts a microscope under it, and it's really hard. It's really hard to grow food. It's going to be really hard to grow food this year again, because it's warm and wet, and our food will be eaten by slugs. And last year was a nightmare. And if people grow their food, then they'll be sitting there going, yes, it was horrible. You know, we've put out some perpetual kale, and it's already been launched, even though, and we're organic. We don't use chemicals. We've tried and find other ways of doing it. So the food library might be a food business because we produce stuff in jars, bottles, we do events, but we're kind of also a model to hand over skills, and also to kind of go, well, what will work? And so it's like a lab.
Yeah.
We do stick stuff in jars and see what happens to them. We are working in a very legal structure of business, of health and hygiene. You know, that is all there around us, and one of the things about placing the food library into a terraced house was for people to go, oh, I could do that, which I think is great. You know, it's kind of, it was like bringing it into a reality that people could relate to. The food that we put on the table has arrived out of an education, so it's very finite in terms of its skill. But if you can, what you're doing is following a sequence of instructions, and if you can drive a car, then you can definitely cook, because you are just following a sequence of actions, and it's to do with time. And I'm very interested in time-based ideas. And 9 months for a garlic, do you know what I mean? I mean, it kind of just blows my mind. You put one in, you get 7 out, but it takes 9 months. That's the same duration of time as a cow and a human being. and I really like that, to be able to think like that. But you have to also then take care of something for 9 months, which is just brilliant, you know. And that also, we're urban. We are surrounded by one of the biggest agricultural landscapes in the country as a county, but we're not really feeding the town, we're feeding a series of large industrial food complexes, which who then feed us. So it was, you know, we work on 2 gardens, and which is also relatable. So it's not a 1,000-acre farm. It is 2 gardens within the area that we are working in, placed together, and how much can we work with that, and also can we sustain a mass biodiversity. So we've got bees in there, we get hoverflies, which are brilliant pollinators. So it was about, if we can do it micro, and we wanted to have a 1,000-acre farm, which is very unlikely, but that actually what you're doing is that every garden could produce food. That's the bag. And we're not drum beaters. We don't go, you know, trying to save the planet. We're just doing something which started off as a question: can I feed a house? Can I feed a household? Can I feed 3 people and anyone will come for dinner? And it's progressed from there, and it was a question, and we work with questions and propositions because we're a library, and we were a library first.
Yeah.
Because they shut libraries down, and it really pissed me off, because they're really important on so many levels. And it just, you know, and it irritated me, and I kind of just went, let's open a library, which also meant that anyone could open a library. You could be photo library, and you could run it out of your house. And Tom, who we work with, could be timber library. And you just take your niche and create and libraries are social, they're accessible, it's not online, it's the full story, it's information, knowledge, not data, which I think when you get offline, you get crumbs, and book as an object will last longer than your phone. It just will. You know, these, you know, you're in a bookshop, and they're great, they're amazing objects, love them. I think they're just bingo moments that you can just slip in your pocket, slip it in a bag, take it out, good friend. But I think, you know, bookshops, libraries, books, anyone can pick them up. Pictures are brilliant. I mean, a lot of the books that I carry have fantastic pictures in, so you can see what you might want to make. So yeah, Utopia is a kind of word of no place, so it's about imagination, and that I think we need a massive level of imagination, which the essay talks about, which is a muscle, and I think we need to have an imagination which could imagine not where we are, and if you don't like it, let's change it, you know. Yeah. That's it.
Well, it's that kind of great thing you said when we visited around the other day, and it was actually about, certainly, because like you say, you do sell these, but the idea is that someone buys one, goes, that was really good, and then starts making their own.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that goes to all levels, what you're doing, like can you fill the household? It's like, well, if you can do it, then everyone can do it.
And it's really hard, and it takes time. It's a time-based thing. It's the hardest thing that I've done, definitely, because it does not end. It does not silence itself. There's always something to do, but you know, it is, you know, if someone's making it in their house, and there are loads of people cooking, and there's loads of, you know, but a lot of people go, I haven't got the time, and it's kind of like, has time shortened? It's a question, and what is time, and I have to ask those questions because it's something that I'm given as an excuse not to grow food. and I kind of go, you know, what? So if time has got, if we were promised that we would have just more leisure time, and how are we using it? And it's as simple as that. What do we want to do in time? You know, working in the garden is really good for well-being. Cooking your own food is really good for well-being. Feeding your own house is really great for your well-being. Seeing the seasons change, really good for your well-being, and just taps you in. Because what a garden does is transform every day. So there's just like this beautiful, it just changes every day. I mean, it changes every hour. I mean, and it does. When I work in the garden, it changes while you're with it. You go back the next day, it's changed. It's either been eaten, or it has got a bit bigger, a bit greener. It takes 12 weeks to grow a majority of stuff. 3 months seems to be like, same as a sheep, it takes 3 months to produce lamb, from incubation, you know, from tupping with the ram to getting lambs, that's 3 months. And I think that it's kind of a curious thing, and you do go through the winter in a different way, like just stop. You can't just stop. So, and I'm just interested in whether we could actually just grow more food in the back of our garden and even if you don't want to do it, hand the garden over to someone who does.
Yeah, and utilise that space.
And utilise that space, you know. Don't cover it in plastic grass, like, you know, friends, be a worm friend. Worms are brilliant, you know, they're doing a massive job. Like bees, you know, we have bees in a very small space, not for the honey, primarily not for the honey, never had honey off them, but, we've had a couple of jars, but primarily for can I live with them? Because I was brought up with this really great running down a path with bees, angry bees over your head, and actually they just get on with me. They're really clever. They're used in experiments with social recognition, facial recognition. They can smell you, they hear your tone, and I think they take you into their hive. So you become a non-threat. The guy over there's fine, but they do come and check you out. If they're irritated, they will go for you. But the question was, can we live with them? And actually, do they pollinate as much as we think they do? Or are they just going to the park here and just doing the lime trees because there's so many of them? But we do feed them. We dedicate the garden to the bees, and so we eat a lot of flowers, salads. And I think questions are really good and really cool to ask. And that's what Utopia is. What is a perfect society? And then there's just loads of models of those. And I just think I want to live in a place which is happy. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really simple. Do you know what I mean? I don't want grief. I've lived in locations of grief, but you can normally get most people round by going, "Ah, you're all right." You're often not part of the grief, but I have lived in quite tense countries, shall we say, and tense environment. Come from quite a tense city, but I think we should be happy. I don't think it should be so difficult to even ask, or even consider what that might be. And I'm, you know, and that's what I do. Is what I've always done, is just ask a lot of questions and try and make them into realities. And I think that's what good art is. Everyone's got a good idea, you know, it's great, but really the art is making it happen.
Yeah,
that's the craft. Yeah. To make it real with an audience of one or none, you know, or 1,000 or 5,000, or what, you know, but making that happen as an idea. And I think people are amazing. You know, we are amazing. We're great in a room. I love pubs. You know, I think pubs are amazing, and I love the vibe in them. I love restaurants, love tables, I love wine, too much sometimes. And I love food, and I love really good food that kind of satisfies me in loads of different ways. And that, you know, so the food library came out of a real desire. I love theatre, do you know, I adored it, I adored performance, I adored concerts. But I think there's a point where you just go, you either keep perpetuating what you've done and you become in the way of a new generation. You kind of go, oh, I want to learn. And there was a point where I think I just got irritated by the art world. But I really, you know, cooking. There are a million things that you can do with a piece of paint. There are a million sounds that you can create with a beat or a voice, or, you know, we have a number of words that we create extraordinary text, and the same is with food, you know, and that there are so many different things that you can do with food. It's really exciting, and that's kind of where I am as, you know, as a someone who's done over 60 summers, which is a great point to arrive at, but it's also a great point of reflection, and it's what do you want to do with time. And I think, you know, opening a library, even as a gesture, is just a really good thing to do, and enables me to collect books like a hoarder, which it is, you know, I do collect books, and I think, but they are all social spaces, Joe. That's what I love. I love theatres, yeah, concert halls, clubs, you know, pubs, cafes, restaurants. You know, there's buses, libraries. They're social spaces, and I think they're essential for our well-being as a society. Because if you isolate yourself, then you're just in a bubble, which we have experienced in 2019. And and I think social spaces are just great. They're just brilliant, and I love my own time. Do you know what I mean? I spend so much time on my own, folding pastry or raking or planting or sewing, but I just love, you know, I grew up in pubs, and I just think it's where you learn to engage with other human beings. And if you cross the line, you're gonna know about it, but actually you are, you know, in a really interesting space of humanity, and I love it. Do you know what I mean? Really, and different bars of different nations are also quite, you know, also fascinating. Religious spaces.
From the slightly like younger perspective people see here, those spaces are like almost disappearing.
Yeah.
Like you said, libraries getting rid of, pubs,
yeah,
closing down, various things, and there's, I think, especially after COVID, people did have that like proper extreme end of, okay, go sit by yourself for a year, 2 years, and don't see anyone. I think we've realised how important they are.
Yeah.
And people need that space that isn't home or work. They need somewhere else where they can engage with other people.
Yeah.
As well, a lot of things are also moving into, like you say, online, data-driven, and a lot of people are doing stuff that the point is, the be-all and end-all is to impress as many people as possible online, and never actually have any tangible interaction with anyone, because it's like, I'll find the people who are exactly like me and ignore anyone who has anything else to say, as though them being different is seen as more of a negative than a positive thing that can be used to, like your bottom line, which is asking questions and developing ideas. It seems very, like, going back to what you said about like knowledge rather than data, the data stuff is very kind of like continually decreases, because someone does bother to read a book, pulls out one thing, makes an internet video about it, and then that internet video becomes the thing that gets circulated, and the rest of the book just gets forgotten. And that seems to be the cycle we're on, so that's why it's people like you doing stuff that's like No, it's possible.
It's tangible.
Like, yeah. Now, what are you going to do with
Yeah,
that?
I mean, that's not even my question. Do you know what I mean? I just sort of, I think we're in a real balance where people are quite touchy like needing to defend themselves. You know, it's what I experience, and I don't really experience it in reality. It's just in my head. But it's not. It doesn't really matter what I think other people should do. This is what I'm doing. We also open the door to come and join in.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people do, and some people don't, and some people buy letters from us, and some people buy it from the 4 potential outlays of supermarkets that we're surrounded by in a swamp of food, which is where we live, you know, which is, you know, Kingsthorpe, Queen's Park. We are basically surrounded by a swamp of food, but I don't know where it's from, I don't know how long it's sat there, I don't know what that apple is. And it's a question, and as soon as I think you start asking people or telling people or suggesting that, I just sort of go, there's a wall goes up, and I think it's more about setting up invitations, rather than, and it is what we're doing. Do you know what I mean? We do it every day. We're feeding a house. We have workshops of passing on things that we're learning, because it's non-stop, and we're just translating books into reality. And I think it's a great thing to do with my time. And we just put that invitation out. We don't go, you should use your garden. We just sort of suggest it because it was seemed a good idea. So the only space that we had was our garden, and then we've acquired a plot of land opposite and behind the workshop, and we're just utilising it. And people coming out. I mean, I've got a mate called Charlie who comes along and mucks in when I really need it, but it's kind of what I do with my time. And if you can't do it, then ask someone, because then what you've got is a string of consequences of people working together. But I can't go, you should be doing this. We're already being told that by a load of suits, many suits, costumes, as Zelensky said, which is Ukrainian for suit. But I just think that we have to just make things invitations, otherwise people can just go, don't tell me what to do, and I don't want to feed the world, Joe. I just want to feed my house. And then the question is, can I feed a street? And can the street feed itself? And if you throw the proposition out as a question, not as an order or as a banner line, it gives room for people to consider, do I want to do that?
Yeah. And at least you plant the seed in their head to ask the question, and then even if they don't push it to the length of completely transforming their...
It's my pacemaker. It's really good.
I might go close this window before
and it's also great fun. I think that's really important, is that it is hard work, but it is great fun. It's great fun having a table of people at our dining events. It's great fun filling the building. It's amazing fun when you actually sort of grow something from a seed to a full-fledged plant and then eat it, and then all of that waste goes into a compost, and then that can be used at some point in another growing system. And it's grounding. I spent so long in airports and so long wandering streets of different nations, or travelling across large spaces, or being in venues where you just set up to your gig, or just being in a studio a lot. kind of, this was really grounding, because you end up really not knowing who you are, what you are, where you are, because you're so immersed in somewhere that you've just been, and that kind of was the end of the, you know, I was just on the road a lot, and it's kind of grounding me, I think, as a potential different human being than I was in my 30s, 20s. I mean, I was quite a renegade to myself. 40s, and then I just think it's a good thing for me to do, and there's loads of people doing it. Do you know what I mean? I found out there's in Corby, there's a place called, it's a bit of a shout out I think, but I've just got a bottle of their vinegar, and they're called Tiny Fungi, and I'm going to go visit them, but they're doing events in Woods around using fungi. And you know, so you know, there's Lizzie Farmer up on the way in Daventry area, you know, who's just got three piglets with an intention of making food with them. They've got ducks and geese, and Lizzie's a forager, well-being human being, a well-being, you know, looking at well-being and walking, and that there are a lot of people out there just doing stuff which is off the radar. I think it's off the radar, and it's kind of what they really want to do, and I also think that's pretty important to, like, scratch your itch.
Yeah.
Do the obsession. Don't worry about being obsessed with it, and by doing it, it doesn't become a mental illness. I think collecting books verges on that, because I get so obsessed with buying books. But I mean, I can handle it. But I think there's, you know, it's an obsession, and I love, you know, I was obsessed with creating live performance. I loved it. I just absolutely adored it. But I wasn't, and I was okay to kind of go, I'm done, and I want to immerse myself in a different material, similar processes, but grounded in one place. I want to watch something grow. I want to see. The question was, can we bring it to life? Mm-hmm. So we had this patch of ground, and it was just flat ground, and it was we had no idea its history. There was rhubarb in the corner, but it was a patch of ground that we just went, can we bring it to life, and can we keep it alive? And not how much money we're going to make out of it, not how much can we grow in order to make money out of it. It was just very simply, can we keep this patch of land alive, surrounded by all of these houses? And it was a great starting point. No pressure other than keeping something alive. That's really difficult. And then it's also enabled us not to force stuff, not to use chemicals, to really explore different fertilisers, comfrey, nettle. New one is alpaca gold, which I'm getting from Hideaway Farm, which is also in Daventry. Another shout out to check them out. They do glamping there, but they do loads of home ed stuff. They're doing well women groups, and it's a patch of land that someone is using in a different way than I just look at it and go, oh, what could you grow in here? And actually it's just a wild space, and it's really beautiful. But they have alpacas, and alpaca poo is really full of phosphorus and nitrogen, and so it's really good for tomatoes. So that's a new discovery from Amy, which is brilliant. Really good, really interesting. And I think it's like a great adventure to keep learning, learn, discover. And that's quite utopian for me, because it's fresh, it's got energy. I don't really analyse it a lot. I mean, I I just enjoy what I'm doing, and I think it's brilliant that we've got a pop-up bar. You know, my building is a pub. My house has got a license, and it was a question: what licenses can we get on a terraced house in order to run a food business? And at the end of the day, all of them. We just haven't gone for the music one because we don't play music every day and it's quite expensive. But you know, we carry a 5-star hygiene. I'm a licensed carrier. The house is a premises license. We have a pop-up bar over the road, and I go, that's really good fun. To go, I wonder if, and then kind of go on a journey and meet the authorities or the departments within the local council who will either say yes or no, but it's about that you're able to negotiate. That is a really good idea, and it's really positive. It's not, I want to do something which is going to freak people out. I'm just going, could I just have a license between this and this time on a daily basis, and if I have an event, we're finished by 10:30 for 10 people. That's it. So it's very simple. It's not going to buy me a Bentley, definitely not a 1,000-acre farm, but it nourishes the house in an interesting way, and also our lives. I do like Bentleys. I just think the old Bentleys are so beautifully designed. But would I have one? I'd have it for a week. A day would be great, but you know, it's kind of what, you know, we are not earning loads and loads of money. What we are is kind of living in a massively wealthy ecosystem that gets us to think, consider, meet loads of people, be a host. I think that's a really great thing. Ask loads of questions, pick up a load of books. People come and stay at the house. It's like a hotel sometimes. It's really hilarious. But it's also kind of quite gentle, because I've kind of done the riot. I've done riot really well. And I think this is, you know, just opening up a series of questions of what do you do with food, how do you grow it. And it's good, you know, it's really good. Really, I do enjoy it, but it is really, really demanding. I've never, you know, I thought the arts were demanding, but you get a break because no one had given you any work, so you'd have a break, or you would take a break because you've got a bit for another gig. But this is just like. And so we, you know, and so we should thank farmers. Do you know what I mean? I ain't getting involved in whether they should inheritance tax, blah blah blah. But what farmers do, or anyone making food from scratch is doing, is massively demanding on their time and their lives. And if they're giving us quality, then go and pick fruit. Do you know what I mean? It's like they haven't got any fruit pickers, and it just, you know, it's made me massively aware that we don't really thank farmers. We just moan about them.
Yeah, and well, it's because, like you say, we're at a point in time where there's so many people being fed by so few.
Yeah.
And people are just kind of disconnected, like completely. No one knows really what they're eating.
No.
And like what goes into it, what stuff. So like the other benefit of oil frozen as well, it gives back a bit of control. Like if you're doing it yourself, you know you've not used some pesticide that might cause issue or other things, and the same for ordinary people. We live in an area where, you like you said, we're surrounded by agricultural land that doesn't feed our town. It goes out and then back in, and
it doesn't go very far. Wheatbix. I mean, I know not to drop names. Maybe we'll take that out. But I just do go really. I'm just looking for a book actually, which is ultra processed food. By, I just need to get the guy's name.
I should know.
Chris Fan something. I mean, we're just, you know, we have I don't know how sustainable it is to have aisles and aisles and aisles and aisles of food. I just don't know. whether that is sustainable. And it really worries me that if it, I remember last year tomatoes and lettuce were coming into the country or not coming into the country, and I remember standing somewhere and someone just lost it, man, about there's no tomatoes and and it was kind of like, shit man, it's February, so they're not actually in season. And you know, there are difficulties with, do we want to talk about Brexit, and actually Spain is really suffering at the moment with drought. I just don't know how long we are sustainable with our food, and the way that we grow food is sustainable, because the soil that we're growing it in is becoming so depleted that there's a kind of figure of 20 seasons, 15 seasons. That's 15 years, man. Do you know what I mean? That's someone being born and not even leaving school. That is that time length. And if we haven't got any soil, then how, you know, growing things in water just isn't it for me. And I think that we have to just really consider, how do we prepare for the changes that are occurring around us. You know, the moment that Ukraine started, we lost access to flour and oil, sunflower oil in particular. You know, and if it's that fragile, then we're constantly walking on a knife edge, and it's frightening. And I don't want to be frightened. I don't want to live in a society that is under threat because it can't eat its beans on toast. I think it's really cheap. I think we can do better than that. I seriously do. You know, I just think we can do better than hope that it's going to be there. And if the tomatoes aren't there, check yourself out, because it's February, and actually we're not really a tomato growing system, and we are an island, and it is complex. Growing food is really complex. Spain has been battered by floods. We don't know what the consequences of that are. We're not there. Olive oil is being decimated not only by a disease but by drought. So that's becoming like gold. Anything coming out of Palestine is gone, but they produce great olive oil. Because there's been a war there that's just decimating the land. And the land's been taken over by other people who want that land. And, you know, and I kind of just go, it can't be that complicated, because we're not doing very well with the complications. By setting up a place like the Food Library, does it actually get us to reflect on those conflicts? And all I can do is open a library and make some food and do some classes. But if there was 100 of those, I think it would be quite a fun place to live. Of not just food, but, you know, photo, you know, teach people how to capture image. And so that's, you know, that's the basis of what we do. But it's come out of a 30-year career working in different landscapes and different people and different cultures. And I think we should celebrate the cultures that we're surrounded by, because at no point in human history either have we been surrounded by so many different food.
Yeah, different cultures.
Yeah.
Other fields as well. Yeah, and especially here, like, we're a pretty diverse town, right? And
yes, have become.
Yeah.
You know.
The thing of, like, why not make use of that? You
know
what I mean?
And it's amazing, you know. It's like the amount of food that we have access to globally now is just here, is just superb, you know, and that, I think that's a real point of celebration, personally.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different flavours, and share the places that you love eating at, because, you know, they're only there if they've got people eating there.
Yeah, of course. So it's that kind of use it or lose it sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
time goes on for a lot of businesses over the last couple of years, especially clothing, whatever. A lot of them are disappearing a lot quicker. There's not as much sort of.
Do you eat out? Do you eat out? Do you think your generation eats out?
I'd say occasionally. I think it's difficult because not as much as other generations, I don't think. And I also think I think especially now we're going to hit another shift because people are becoming, like that book you mentioned earlier, the ultra processed food. There's a lot of education coming out around these sorts of things that younger people are listening to because they've never been used to the old system and going, well, it's fine as it is, there's no problem there, sort of thing. And I think for younger people, what interests them is different, and there's still a lot of restaurants and food places that are kind of delivering stuff that isn't that interesting. What I mean? There's a lot of borderline, this is fast food with a different name on the place, you know what I mean? So I think people are getting, not picky because it makes it sound sort of snobby, but you know what I mean? But I think young people are getting a bit more interested and curious about what else can be done and kind of bored by the standard everywhere serves the same 6 menu items. So I think they do, but because younger people have less money, they're a bit more selective. And there's a bit more of well, we could go here and spend this much, but I'd rather go less but somewhere else that's perhaps hopefully doing something more interesting for a reasonable price. You know what I mean? So I think it's shifted.
It's all about the money.
Well,
it is. I mean, but we're working on a thing called Slow Food Sunday. So we're supporters of the slow food movement, which came out of Italy, and McDonald's opened a takeaway, because they're not restaurants, on the Spanish Steps around that area in Rome, and a group of people, academics, food theorists, chefs, growers, makers of food, kind of got really angry about it, because it was like all of a sudden you had this fast food thing going on, and eating in Italy is brilliant. Markets in Italy are just so beautiful. They make me cry, because you are just surrounded by loads of fresh food, and it is amazing. Milan has one that travels around the city, and it's just like a massive street of food, and at certain times it's just flowers from courgettes, like boxes and boxes of them. People are buying. There's none at the end of the day. It's really, a really beautiful thing, and I do enjoy it. And I think, I really enjoy food. You know what I mean? I'm salivating just thinking about all of these flowers, and I've also gone off tilt now because I've kind of completely forgot what I was talking about.
McDonald's open.
Oh yeah, so the slow food world kind of set themselves up in Piemonte, which is north of Milan, and there's a school there now, and it was about promoting traditional food practices, like making it by hand, growing it, or using fresh food, organic, and then there's, with the organic thing, I know there is a money thing there, but there's a group of people who work with food who I'm working with to do Slow Food Sundays, and the question that we kind of went on, what do Italians eat for Sunday, because it ain't Yorkshire pudding, and we're looking at the history of the Yorkshire pudding in one of them, working with a guy called Robin Popham, who does our fire workshops, and we're going to look at historical, we're going to look at Mediterranean, we're going to look, and working with Davide, who runs La Trattoria in town, and what are people eating on a Sunday, and are we so obsessed with this image of the roast and the Yorkshire pudding, and we've kind of gone, the money's really important, because actually it costs to make food, to grow food, costs, and we want it for as little as possible, but it costs, and we've had this kind of mad WhatsApp rant at each other about the money for a Sunday lunch, and it's like, we can't do it for £16. We just can't do it. We can't do it because we're not doing 200 covers. We can't do it because we work with a particular sequence of time, and that's that thing with time that comes up again and again and again. Food costs, and we're not actually paying a reality for it. And I think that is a massive bone of contention for us. We're not paying for the food, and we've had cheap food for so long that but if is it only expensive because people's wages aren't high enough, and it's not the food producer's fault because people haven't got the food to buy the money to buy the food. So at what point in this puzzle of our relationship with food do you talk about money, and what is the real nub of the conversation? Because if someone's making food, they deserve to be paid to make it. Because it takes me up to 3 days to produce a dinner because of the prep involved, and that is my choice, my decision. But I love making pastry. I don't want to buy it in a packet. I want to make it from scratch because I want to put quality on my table. But money and food is a massive issue that we don't want to talk about. We just expect a salad to be 16p, 20p, I don't know, do you know what I mean? And really at the end of the day, they're cheap, but a salad only lasts 24 hours once you plucked it out of the ground. It only lasts, anything inside it is gone. We fill it in a bag full of gases that will keep it fresh. So, and actually, it's not very hard to grow salad on your windowsill, and that and it is a bone of contention that people but someone's growing it, chopping it, bagging it, delivering it. We don't know where it's from. It could have travelled 200 miles to arrive here. At what point do we just go, well, let's just feed the town from the fields that we're surrounded by in order to make life kind of easier for us all?
Yeah, and I think that extends to like other mediums as well, not just food. Like people are totally disconnected from the cost or the materials or the time of things, whether that's food. Probably, I mean, like Lucy's spoken a lot about like making clothes as well. Yeah. People expect a t-shirt to be, £5 from Primark, and they think a machine printed it out when really there was someone at the end of that line who had to sit and make it. People are disconnected from the reality of that. So these companies can offer it for dirt cheap, but then when someone tries to deliver high quality and like stuff they've put time and love and care into, it suddenly seems like they're just trying to, from like the normal person's perspective, like they're trying to rip you off. Yeah. Because in their head it's like, it should be cheap, it should be, like, I think human beings are efficient and they like that, and there's it's a really weird tangent to go down, but there was a thing about video game design, where they have to be very cautious not like to protect players from themselves, because obviously video games are meant to be games, they're meant to be fun, but they've found that if they accidentally leave in a way that a player can do something really, really boring to get earn more gold coins or whatever, instead of actually playing the game they were meant to be playing, people will choose to do that over playing the game and have fun. They'll take the fun out of it for them, and I feel like in a weird way we've hit this odd point where we've done that in reality, where we've made all these systems try and strip them back as efficient and as cheap as possible. And it's to the point where we've started losing things, because supermarkets all offer the same stuff. There's so much stuff that people don't know even exists, and people don't experiment with things like with food. A lot of people are like, the recipe didn't say that, we shouldn't shouldn't tweak it, it might go wrong. No, we shouldn't do anything different. And it's at a scary point, especially when you're suddenly like, someone's like, what do you mean there aren't tomatoes available?
Yeah.
And then you take it away, we suddenly don't know what's, like, freak out, right?
Yeah,
Especially with scary stuff happening in the world that could result in like a lot of those things suddenly disappearing. You're left with a bunch of people who can't go and do it themselves because there's just no way of accessing that resource.
Well, we don't teach children how to cook food. I don't think we had at our school how to cook food, but it was definitely in the house. So my gran was there, there was food being made. And there was food being made, rice was being made. It was a great time of yellow rice in the 70s. And there wasn't, there was always things being tried out, I think, but it wasn't being taught in an educational system. And it is my thing, and I think I just think there should be more of it. We should just have more connection with it, and maybe with a lot of other things as well. So there's these great things starting called repair shops, repair clubs, where you turn up with something that's broken and someone will help you mend it. I think they're great. They're really good. There's a great little essay that I'll ping to you. And just that you sort of take back ownership. I think it's kind of ownership of your own time, but I think we are living in a very precarious landscape where you can't, it's a question really, are we worried about questioning the status quo to a level that things just tick along around us, and so we're not really taking the society that we live in and the politics that are going on really to task. And I grew up in, not only was I educated by people like the 68 riots in 1968 in Paris, which was like a fundamental moment, I think, but also, you were brought, there was a point where you just went to demos and it was a great thing to do, and you were angry about the miners and I think when the million march happened with the Iraqi war and it didn't stop that movement, it took the wind out of a population and generation. And I really think that happened because they just went to war. They didn't listen to millions of people who just went, we don't want to go to war, we don't think it's a good idea. And it is contentious to question everything so much, or to debate it, or to negotiate it, or to question, and I think, and that really worries me, do you know what I mean? Because I kind of just go, you should have a good argument, debate, you don't have to punch people in the face, but to have a good kind of, where are we at as a, not only as a species, not only as a town, not only as a country, but where are we at? Because there's a lot of people wandering around in my head who are scared, man. Do you know what I mean? I just feel there's like this, driving down the road, I just feel if someone crashed into you, they'd want to smack your lights out just because you got in the way. And even if that's not real, just that I'm thinking that, I just go, is an issue. There's a level of tension around that I don't think I'm making up. No. And if we don't have social spaces, then they just crumble because we're not being tested, we're not being questioned, we're not engaging with ideas or humour of other people, I mean, and I just think there's so much has been subverted that I thought was a good thing, that, that I think for me the food library is a very positive thing. And we talked about, a number of conversations about this flooding the zone, and that has come out of the Trump campaign, and that if we're going to flood the zone, then we should be flooding the zone with something really positive that I find positive. Maybe what the Trump ideal is kind of, I just find it quite negative, and I kind of, this thing that, you know, flooding the zone with positivity, that I define as what I define as positive, because everything's been so cut short now. Yeah, but that's not freedom of speech. It's like, oh, you're attacking my freedom of speech. You know, and everything's just being curtailed and cut short. And you know, and I know what is positive. You know, a good night out is positive. Sitting around a table with loads of people is positive. Sitting around with the people that you live with is positive. Growing food is positive. And that everything that we try to do has a positive effect, but actually what I'm getting quite a lot of is not positive. It is being flooded into me. It is accusational. It is divide and rule. It is angry. It makes people angry, and it is flooding the zone, and it's flooding a specific zone, which is the web and electronic media devices. And that's the zone they're talking about. And so the conversation that is that, can you flood a local zone?
Yeah.
We're local, do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, we're just this like tiny pocket, and I get a lot of attention at times. But we are, you know, we won the Environmental and Biodiversity UK Award. We're not a farm. This tiny example of what could be, this no place. And we do try and keep things positive, although I did put the stock market rate of a German, because it shocked me, man. The stock market has rised on a particular company because they're planning to make so many more things that kill people, and it just really shocked me. But we primarily, can you flood the zone of where you are with positivity?
Yeah, which I think, if you, like with what you said, the connection is like, you know, you spoke about like the Iraqi war, and just they didn't listen, they just did what they want. And we're at a point where people...
It really upset us.
Yeah, but fast forward to now,
yeah.
It's like everyone goes, we don't want them to do that, and they did it anyway.
Yeah,
yeah. And there's a point where people are kind of just going, okay, well, they just don't listen to anything. Nothing gets, and I think that's where people go, okay, well, you have to start thinking locally, because, you know, you can band people together in that once you get them away from the like online space and things, and you start creating smaller pockets, then it's something where it's like, well, okay, we can't, like, how many protests have there been about Gaza in the last, what's it been now?
Well, it's been made illegal.
Yeah. Exactly. So
I mean, I just thought when that was curtailed by the Tories, that hasn't been put back in place by the, but they didn't arrest the farmers.
Yeah. And
so
it's like, okay, so that tactic's not working anymore. They've become savvy to that. So it's like the new tactic is like, just do it yourself. Just go play somewhere else, right, and do something you think is going to be positive. Like, what can you control? Which, you know, for you has translated into the food library, for us has translated into this space, and for everyone else will hopefully translate into something else. Because I think we're at a point in, like, the world stage is so far out of reach in a way that it feels like.
Well, understanding.
Well, exactly.
I mean, it's just like what happened in the White House was, I mean, everyone's kind of gone, wow, that was really surreal, man. And we have no grasp on that. We can't change that, but we can change what goes on in your backyard. And I go, if you can work miniature, you know, work that small, then is that a really positive move? And it's a proposition. Do you know, and that's it. All we can do is offer positive, creative ideas, and people will either pick up on them or not. Like you said, you're not, you know, you're self-funded. and it will either be here or won't. Have you got a plan if it's not?
Well, if it's like, yeah, like just to fill people in, yeah, we spoke about, yeah, there's no loans or grants to what we do here.
Yeah.
It's just purely what can we do, building on it, responding to what people want. If it will work, but the thing is, it can entirely be scaled back, a lot of what we do.
Yeah.
This podcast, okay, we now have a light and a nicer camera and stuff, but I used to do this from my garage in, like, you know, when in lockdown you were allowed to have like one person around. I started the podcast in my garage.
That's great, because you know Amazon started off in a garage.
Oh right.
Yeah. So you could be running like a massive studio in a couple. But Jeff Bezos started selling books out of his garage, which I always kind of find quite canny.
Yeah. So like, and you know, same with the bookshop. Like I say, it helps us to have a physical space, and it's great to have people come around at the events and read through, and you can talk about them because I know where every single one of these came from, and who made them, why they made them, what they used, a little bit about all of them. Obviously sometimes a bit of a challenge to keep up when new stuff comes in, and I've not had time to familiarise myself, but it's interesting to talk about different stuff. But still, I can still move that to
back to
my
the
garage,
garage.
To the garage, or you know, unless there's, or we can do like, you know, the contemporary pot on the makers market. So we take the books out and do little pop-ups. There's loads of spaces around town I could take it to, but and I think why I find you so interesting is like you figured out how to do it in your house, which like I think for us doing it in this space was what made sense at the time. But every part of it can be like, I can still be a photographer. Just go to it outside, right? You take pictures anywhere. You know what I mean? Everything we do can be transformed. The message stays the same, even if we move to a bigger room or we get rid of the room. There's still, you know, I'm still going to do it. It just changes how it does it, and then we build it up in a different direction. You know, it's very flexible. That's the plan.
Great. It's a good plan.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk quite a lot about buildings. One of my greatest areas, I think, I kind of got a brilliant grant off the Arts Council, which was quite a lot of money, and actually I just buried it into a studio space. And someone turned around to me and went, "Who I've known for a very long time, just when it'll break you." And I kind of went, what you talking, what you're saying? I said, well, because actually what you do is you have to end up, it costs you money. That's what starts, is as soon as you open the door, well, before you've even arrived there, it's costing you money. And how do you sustain that? So I had it for quite a few years, but then the crash happened, the financial crash, 2008, fucking hell. And people were just losing money left over. I mean, I lost so much money and I couldn't afford a studio. And it's whether, you know, buildings, working out the house, we've now acquired a double-fronted workshop. And you know, that's where, you know, we sustain that. It was never the intention. But we're trying to work it out. But we're constantly trying to work it out, because, you know, really at the end of the day we want to open a slow food restaurant 3 days a week, but sustaining that would be really difficult. So we're constantly imagining what it could be, perfect for us or perfect for other people, or, you know, what do we want to do with this space? And we do look at it as installation. You know, it is constantly an installation system. I just think naturally we're going to do that, because that is a background that both Laura and I come from. Is visual art, visual performance, whether it's dance or working with classically trained musicians. It's still a visual composition constantly going on. That's kind of my background. And so we do look at the front of the building as that. It's just great fun. it's like a discovery as well. Do you know what I mean? We're constantly discovering, but we have arrived at trying to run a building, and it's like, whoa, is that the way? And I think it gets, I don't know, it's a question that's kind of come up while I've been talking to you. Does it get, the older you get, does it get harder to let go of things, or once you're enmeshed in it? Because we've gathered, do you know what I mean, so much kit, it's phenomenal, it's mad. We acquired loads of knives, forks, spoons, plates from a hotel that is in Weedon called Crossroads, and the Amos family owned it during the 80s, I reckon. And I know the family through Charlie Amos, who comes round to helps with the garden. Annabelle Amos works on BBC Radio, Northampton Breakfast. Johnny, and there's another sister as well, I might have only met once, but they basically gifted us the knives, forks and spoons and plates and glasses from this hotel that they were brought up in. And they're really beautiful. And they completely don't fit the building, which is an old workshop, and these are like silver plated or stainless steel. I mean, they're so well made with Crossroads Hotel written on it. So it's a great, that's brilliant, but we're amassing stuff. So we sort of go, well, if we wanted to just go, no, that's like a year to get rid of all the gear that we've got. You know, we've got a garden, we've planted trees, what happens to the trees, you know, it's just like, oh my God. So we are looking at long-term investment of time, but to think, you know, we started off with, but you can't, you know, you can just go, kidding. But you're amassing stuff, you know what I mean? It's like the frame at the back with the...
Yeah, and with what you're saying, I think we're at the point where we're starting to take slightly more, like, because when we started, the reality was like, okay, it's January, by February, this is either still here or it's like very much like, okay, can we keep it going? Our first year, which was 2021 into 2022, so we've been here. We've been here 3.5 years.
Really?
So, but now we're at the point where we're kind of planning a bit further ahead to see, because obviously, you know, the more you want to put in, the better the results. So if you want to go sort of better or harder, if you like, then you've got to spend a bit longer on things. But now we know comfortably, like, okay, it's instead of being like, okay, we'll be here, we'll definitely still be here in 6 months' time, we can kind of take that risk. We'll probably still be here in a year, so let's see.
When did you get your PHOTOMAFIA logo done? When did that start?
That was before we moved in. We'd done.
Oh really?
We'd done that, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because so the story was so there was me and Alex, and there was a few other people on the course that were kind of like wanted to be involved, but like financially didn't want to jump in on splitting the rent on the room in the end and things like that. So there was, I think there was 4 people originally, then 3, and then it ended up just being just me and Alex. Because I guess we were the crazy people who were willing to like stick it out in some way. But yeah, we started talking about it in sort of the end of our 2nd year, and our 3rd year was the COVID year. So it was we spent a lot of time just sat in our bedroom, like you could go on a walk around like a park, so me and Alex could meet up and talk about it and like plan, because we had to kind of be like, okay, so it's COVID, I think it's going to end, but also like, what are we going to do after uni? We were kind of blessed with this weird uni experience where like, okay, we lost access to all the resources, we started to do our course, but also like a lot of free time in the other direction. So it was kind of planning that, and then just from that just came up with some idea of something and then just rolled with it basically. But the logo and the name was pretty early on, before we moved in, So we had some idea of what we wanted to do. It was just like, and then I guess that kind of fed into some of the other ideals, because obviously Mafia is a group of people in some ways. So
it's a family.
So we always had that idea of like, how do we get sort of the bunch of creative individuals that we know and bring them together. So there was a place that kind of, when we started doing the exhibitions, the idea was to have somewhere for people to come together and talk about art and creative things and meet the other people in the community who are doing it, because young people, they're all sat in their bedroom, oh, well, follow him on Instagram, but I don't really talk to him that much because I don't know him that well. It's like, well, have you messaged him? No. Do you see him out in the streets? No. I wouldn't know where to find him, you know what I mean? So it's creating that environment where people come and meet people they otherwise wouldn't. And yeah, that's where the group is sort of formed. But also, you know, Mafia had a bit of an edge to it as well, which kind of I felt suited the individuals. But the idea was to have somewhere they could meet up that also wasn't a pub, because a pub brings, you know, alcohol and other chaos that doesn't lead to someone having a creative idea and actually fulfilling it. There's a lot of talk of creative ideas at pubs, but they wake up next morning and their head hurts and that idea is long forgotten, you know. So it was kind of pulling away from that and a space dedicated to that for the sort of, to allow that process to like facilitate it and take place. Even if like me and our time involved, I can be up here talking to someone about books and two people can meet for the first time and talk and go off and do something, and then that exists. Like, not that we're sat here being like, we're going to take credit because there's nothing to us, but the idea was to lay that foundation so that people would go and do stuff. And I'd like to think that, there's been a fair amount of stuff that people go, oh yeah, I met him at yours actually, and it's like, okay, cool. So that's that was the gist, just to keep that going and keep conversations, because we also felt as young people, especially in COVID, everyone was becoming more separated and not doing stuff together, or being very like, well, I'm interested in this stuff and your stuff's a bit different, so like, oh, we're cool as friends, but I don't think we could ever do anything together. It's like, that's not the case. It's like, there's somewhere you can meet in the middle, or someone can, you know, compromise and do something slightly out of their comfort zone, but that only comes about through like talking about it, and normally talking about it in person, not just online, and because online becomes very quick, do you want to do this? Yes or no, and then if it's a no, that's the conversation ended. In person you get a lot more time to discuss and consider and work around things until you come up with something that might be different than what you originally set out to do, but still something. Like you say, it's the doing part which is important in creating.
Well, for me, you know, some people just like floating around in ideas, but for me, it is about making them happen, and I'm quite belligerent like that. I mean, I think it's one of the spaces that I've kind of gone, oh, I recognise this from my life. While I've been in Northampton, I've kind of gone, and I think it's a really good thing, should be supported. Not everyone's into photographs, it's quite niche, and it's whether you get the support of local art industry world. I think that's really important, but I think it is great. COVID was really interesting. I mean, that's when we did label all our paperwork, time to go, what is a label? And for me, it was a really pivotal moment of pulling stuff together, ideas together, and just having the time to go for a walk and have a consideration. I found it quite a fascinating period. I don't think being in education would have been cool for me doing that. I'd have just not been there, actually. Definitely not. But the course that I did at Black Mountains College that opened up the essay was online, and I really struggled with it. I really struggled with it. The first session was a car crash for me, but I did struggle with trying to connect with anything really. It was quite really difficult. So I really feel for a massive amount of people. Work was hard. Laws could go into work because it was social housing, so they had a system, so it kept things alive as human beings. I kind of think we need people in a world that might be saying not. But I do, you know, I spend so much time on my own. But as I've said, but I think, you know, you need your gang, you need your mafias. You know, we don't have to. You know, you need your families, you need your connections, you need that support system. You know, we just had the Oscars last night, and actually none of those films were made by a single person. They're made by a phenomenal amount of structure. You know, Jarman's films was, he said, you know, they were massive collaborations. That's what they are. You know, and I think when the circus is on the road, it must be pretty massive to really good, amazing to kind of live in that bubble to make something that might take 7 years to produce at different points. But you know, I think it's brilliant. Look, it's so lovely room.
And I think the other thing, especially in arts, is people have that kind of that fear that they've just gone slightly crazy and they're ploughing away at a project that actually is not going to resonate with anyone.
Yeah,
so
that's all right.
Yeah,
I think it's all right. I mean, you know, I think there's loads of crazies. We see them on the telly quite a lot, quite recently. I mean, the crazy thing is, you know, what I don't know. I mean, you know, there's so much work which is produced. There's an amazing, in Lausanne in Switzerland, there's an amazing museum, gallery, collection, it's a collection actually, of outsider art. It's well worth visiting. It's well worth visiting. It's just phenomenal. And it is a collection, it's not a museum. It is called a collection, it's outsider art. And it is people who were maybe obsessed with just working with one colour,
right,
on a large scale or small scale, or one material, or making the same object again and again and again, but as a collection of work, phenomenal, so worth a visit. Great. You arrive in Geneva, you get on the train, get off Lausanne, you walk up the hill, and it's in a really old house, and it's really beautiful and inspiring. And I think the crazy, you know, the crazies working on one thing, it might not be for now. Because before we started this, we talked about brutalism, and you know, and it's like how, you know, things might come to maturity in 100 years' time. It doesn't matter. Someone just needs to say something in their way and crack on. But it's not about making the hit immediately. 10,000 hours? Is that a phrase? Where you have to do something 10,000.
The mastery.
And you know,
yeah, I feel like a lot of sort of, especially younger people, and especially with how sort of the internet and going viral and things like that affects, making the hit becomes like, is like on the forefront of people's minds, and if it's not going to be a hit, then it's not worth doing. But like we spoke about, like, yeah, brutalism is still misunderstood. People are still like, yeah, I'm glad they got rid of the bloody ugly spaces, they're horrible, but you know, there is, and it's creating something that's not everything's meant to be for everyone. Not everything's meant to be, because if something's for everyone, then it's kind of for no one. It's been boiled down to like very sort of
in a very tight frame on the phone as well. The Barbican's beautiful. South Bank, it's okay, it's good, it's got its moment, but it's all come out of that period of time. Both of those spaces, and I think the Barbican just keeps getting more beautiful because it's to do with there's loads of living plants there.
Yeah.
Coventry Cathedral, what space? But I do, you know, it's like, is it just about doing something that will bring you a wage packet? And I don't know. I mean, that is a massive contentious thing to talk about. Because we do charge quite a lot for our produce, and just go, but it takes that amount of time to to, yeah, but I could buy a salad for 20p, and it's like, no, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? It's like, that's like 12 weeks of my life, mate, do you know what I mean? You want to fighting off slugs. So I just think that is, you know, but the brutalism conversation I think is well worth having, because I think there's some great buildings that we've lost. I don't think we really immersed ourselves in the conversation of what those spaces were intending to be. Some guy came up with Timber Club Tom, about Chris Peak. He was an interesting guy who started with Newtown. I think it's Chris Peak. Are you having a look? Chris Pratt? No, Chris. I've looked. He was architect. He was an architect around who worked with Joan Littlewood, and they created the Palace of Fun. And I think it's really worth looking into. Chris, fucking hell, better edit this bit. Chris Peak. No. Very cool conversation. Tom sent me a link, so I need to just go back to that. Robin, David, Tom, Timber Library, Timber Tom. About this guy who's basically made, and the building doesn't exist anymore, which I just think kind of says a lot. And I really think it's worth just having a look outside this conversation. Timber Club. I'm not going to find it, but I will ping you the. But it was this period of time of invention of what could a building be. They didn't have any money, they couldn't work with stone, they had loads of concrete, they could make slabs. I mean, I lived in Hume for a very long time, and it was kind of the worst environment to live in, but really exciting. Timber Library. Tom would making a sign for us. I asked about this as well, because it's like we're putting a sign on the building, we've never done that before. It's quite a big step for us. Where does the idea from? Alright, there we go, Jan Littlewood. Oh no, Cedric Price, he's called. The Fun Palace. Isn't that brilliant? And Cedric Price was an architect, and he created the Fun Palace in the 60s. Really interesting. And I think the leisure centre, which is called the Elephant in Coventry, you go in there, you can play bowls in there, there's bars in there. They were like, it was like a fun bar on multiple levels as well. And there was like a dream of utopian spaces, and I am attracted to them, obviously. But that Cedric Price is well worth checking out as an individual who offered different building structures and what you can do in them. They weren't what's the newest building that's been built here? They weren't can't think of a building that, the university. I mean, that's like a massive build. Do you know they built Manchester Met if it crashed as a business, they built this massive building. They kind of did loads of building there. They kind of built it with that. If it goes wrong, we can actually break this down into shop units or offices. So there's always like this second-hand €50 durational thing on buildings, And that actually, with the university here going under so much financial pressure, and universities going out of business, which is kind of like a nightmare, I think, personally. I don't think everyone has to go to university, but I do think that I really enjoyed the time that I went going into higher education. It was fundamental for me as a human being. And but actually that whole section on the river could actually just be made into something else using those building structures, sold to a bigger department, you know, into broken down into different offices. And they did that in Manchester with a building that actually, if it went wrong, they could actually just use it for boots, or someone else would move in. And so there's no solid foundation. I mean, his building doesn't exist anymore, but I just really like the idea of someone looking at his building as a fun. I think that's really, really amazing. What do you think of, because you don't have to use this, what do you think of the new gallery and then contemporary? With what you've said about buildings and people meeting.
Well, it all seems fairly opaque in terms of their sort of uses of it, because obviously, like, when we saw it, it's all still quite empty. There's, you know, the room that they've done a few talks in that seems to be like, could be something interesting. And obviously the studio spaces. I think it's hard to pass judgment when I'm not sure what's going to happen with it.
Right, but are they not asking people to be involved in it in order to shape its identity? And is it for those people who work in an office, who've raised the money, who've had it built, is it for them to go, well, actually we're just going to put shops in here, which everyone will be really mortified about? Or are they waiting for people to go, I'd really like to do this in here? As just as much as you've talked about this room and how people meet at those social events. I didn't go to the last one.
No, I didn't either.
No, I couldn't. There was no way that I could. There was no way that I could get there. It was quite an odd time for me. But you know, it's kind of, someone has got a building. They have opened a building, and they are using. They're trying to invite people to ask that question of what to do with a building. Who should be in the building? I mean, we're going to put food in that building in April, I think. April the 11th, we're doing lunch for loads of art producers, I guess. It's a network. Not northeast, southeast, is that where we are? East Midlands network, art network. We're going to do a lunch. Probably nettle soup. He's on that. Be quite fun. A lot of gathering. Jesus, like 10 bags, we reckon. 10 shopping bags of nettle tops. But do you know what I mean? It's like if we don't join it, if the art community doesn't join in with the building, then the building will be empty.
And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where almost Northampton does this thing where people like things to fail. I don't know, like they almost seem to go out their way to be like, they said they're doing this, it's going to be shit. And then when it happens, everyone just goes, see, told you it's going to be shit. And it's like, you're not engaged with it at all. So no wonder and then it fails and I go, see, told you that would happen. And it's like, but you could have done something about that, right? You could have got involved, you could have, tried to steer it in the right direction through, not through like forcibly going in and changing something, but like...
Well, it's negotiation, isn't it? I love it. I love negotiation.
And just like, talk to the people, like, you can give your ideas and...
I mean, they're public spaces at the end of the day. I mean, and that if you haven't got access, then you have to work out how to get it, and also what to do in them. I think Cedric Price really worth looking at, because he worked with Joan, that name gone, very important theatre director, and worked in the East End of London, Littlewood, and it was about opening buildings up to people who weren't normally allowed in them. And I don't know whether we need that anymore. I don't know whether it's on the agenda anymore, but there was a period of time where buildings were just open. How do you open buildings up? how do you open access for free education? I mean, that was like a major change post-war, and that let load of working class people into educational institutes in order to change society. Really great plan. Open University had a brilliant first name. Harold Wilson's started Open University, so you didn't have to go into the buildings of institutions, you could do it from home. And I just think it was a radical change to alter society. I think education's become business orientated, and that enabling and allowing allowing people in their 20s to gather a £50,000 debt is criminal. It's just criminal, because I think it puts you under a pressure to go, I have to work. Whereas I was not under that pressure. I just was not under that pressure, and I could sign on, and I could keep work. Don't mention the word, but I was arrested a few times, caught carrying things on the street by the Dole office. But we had a cushion underneath us that enabled us just to keep trying things out, just keep walking into buildings that we weren't allowed in, and testing ideas out, find little spaces like this and keep putting a show out there, and living in them areas which you know, my flat was a cinema for a while in Hume. It was amazing. The amount of kitchens, you know, flats became clubs, and there was something really raw about everything and quite inventive, and we were all winging it in a really brilliant way, trying to make what you'd imagined real, and there were so many empty buildings that in a way we could do that.
Well, it comes back to what you said about like a kind of desperate need for imagination.
Yeah.
Like with whether that's in the space like the Contemporary, or there's like the creative place on the Market Square here, or wherever, like those ones are crying out for people to engage with.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are already just going, I don't really care for them, like, and they haven't done anything that's impressed me, so why would I do anything?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you got to do something.
Yeah.
Like, but also, like you said, even scaling that back further to people who are like, well, I can't afford a space, or I can't do something. It's like, well, what do you have? Like, you were talking about a flat that was a cinema, and
we did. We got we got the seats out of the old BBC concert hall, which was in the it became the near centre. But there was an old. There was the BBC would do recordings in there, and it'd been empty for years and years and years. And we managed to get the seats out of them, including the chandeliers, which we used in various strange ways. And the seats became a cinema for a period of time in it. And we could knock the walls down in the flats, so that you had really long rooms, awful in the winter, but really great cinemas. And I think it was like those spaces that really kind of generated the music scene in the city, because people were using those flats as recording studios. You just met loads. You know what I mean? A guy called Gerald was living above us. That was brilliant. No one was above, no one was hoity-toity. Everyone was just like running in order to invent today. And I know that was happening, and it was rough, dirty, cold, covered in dog shit. You'd find dead bodies. People were throwing TVs out of the room. Children weren't allowed to live there. But it was inventing tomorrow, and I know that was happening because today was already happening, and it was really exciting. But we weren't carrying a £50,000 debt from being a student, and I think it's criminal. And I think as soon as that happened, you silenced a generation. You just had to crack on and not play.
Yeah.
And I think we were quite spoiled at being at playtime with the amount of clubs that were generated around us in the city, from the PSV to the Hacienda and the clubs in Moss Side. Really important. you know, amazing playtime, and it was rough and dangerous, and people would mug you and blah 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 blah. But really, it was really very good fun. And I think if you saddle a generation with debt, then you silence them.
Yeah, because then they're scared to try anything, because it's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm already in the shit.
Yeah, I'm already. Well, you're in the financial shit.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to start paying it off at some point. I mean, you know, and I do find that cruel, Joe. I do, honestly. I just do. I was given a free education and a grant, and it was great. It was brilliant, and I did it for 2 years, and then I didn't do it anymore because I was dyslexic and I didn't know what to do with dyslexia. Just, I don't know, but it was an amazing time, and I don't think you should pay for it. Really, I just think we should be fulfilling people's potential of making a better place to live, which could be seen as being quite airy-fairy, but I just go, whatever's going on at the moment really ain't working well for people.
Well, you just try it. It's sort of this weird situation where you have to go, otherwise you're told you won't get a job.
Yeah.
But then you do go, and then it's like, all right, cool. That job's all well and good, but you are just paying us back now for giving you the like. It's like you've now, you know, you're then paying them back. Like, thanks for like get to work for no reason.
Yeah.
It feels like, and like. I think it definitely has shifted, and obviously there's a lot of angry, pissed off young people around that as well, but some of them don't even realise it's any different from before. Like, I mean, I just figured that's how it always was, you know what I mean? Because that's what you're presented with. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I mean, it was great. I just think, you know what I mean, the education was there, and the structures were built by the country as universities, and now they are just massive machines of finance. And they are, because I've worked in them, not here. I did a talk on utensils the other day, really great. Talked about my favourite whisk and its perfection to the design department. But I think that it was, you know, we built, and the country built an infrastructure of education, and then we've sold it off. But I do think people should be educated, but it might not be in those institutes of university. It might be in, you know, we would like to do at the food library an apprenticeship, and it would just be immensely full on, going from a garden, washing down, going into a kitchen, serving people at it. I mean, you end up just learning so many skills. We think it would be a good thing to do. Whether we get that off the ground, or whether we're able to whether we get it off the ground, it's an idea that we're throwing out there, and we're going to talk to people if they want to do it. Then we build a financial structure around them. Not go, this is the financial structure, fit into it, which is kind of backward for me. Kind of find a person who would benefit from this, build financial structure around their needs and our needs, because we need to pay that person to go through an apprenticeship. And so and that's why we work quite slowly with things, I think, because it kind of enables us to look at things maybe from the reverse side of normal, which rather than just going for the money, we're kind of going for the person and then build around them, which will take longer time. But it's kind of about facilitating what's needed around them. You know, it's like not just the money. The money's just the money, really, at the end of the day. But I mean, putting people under debt is, I just think what the system has done is what Trump did to Zelensky the other day, which was, you owe us money, and it's kind of like, fuck, I thought you were just helping us, because no one's asked for the money back from you from throwing people and weaponry into Iraq. People just went, well, we'll be there to help. And that's what we did. No one, you know, I just think it's really cruel what's happening. And that, you know, I just think it could be better. I think it's a good thing, a good place to be, to go, things could be better, but not in that way. Not in that way. I don't like that. And, you know, and I just, I like, you know, I just think it could be better. I have been lucky to live in lots of different places and seen lots of different examples of living, and it always works with good food and good drink and good company. And even if you're in the top of the world where it's really cold, there's something very beautiful about lots of candles and people just hanging out in the bars. Amsterdam in the winter is brilliant. Copenhagen is, you know, cold but beautiful, and it's not that we should be comfortable all the time, but I do think we should be secure, and I do think we should be fulfilled, and I'm doing that with food, and you're doing that with books and photography, and do you do workshops with cameras? Do you do, I'll teach you how to take a photograph, which you went through 3 years of.
So we don't do workshops as per se, but, well, I tell a lie actually, we're doing some teaching with the Lowdown, the mental health charity that's just off of Gold Street. So but that was more, they asked if we wanted to do it from YouTube, we said, yeah, that sounds cool. But our idea was with our space, so we hire out the studio to people. The idea was to have the price point be low enough that a person who had perhaps not been able to go to uni or had not had, because you know other studios are like, you're talking 70 quid an hour, and you get the white wall. They let you in the room. Our one comes with, you know, the lights and stuff, and the idea is that me and Alex are on hand there, so when someone comes in and goes, this isn't work, oh, how's that work? Oh, I've seen this online, like, how do you do that? We can show them, so it's kind of ingrained within it, and from that it's allowing sort of, you know, local photographers who, you know, there's a lot of kind of like, they have a camera and they'll take some pictures at Abington Park of people and then use that and try and get them to the point where they can, you know, oh yeah, someone finally gave me enough money to shoot a photo in the studio, cool, I can hire it for an hour. And then they come away with shit because, you know, they don't know how the lights work, or they also have to buy their own lights and get those and like that. So it kind of, it lets them, the idea was to let them dip their toes in the water where they're not gonna, you know, it's not gonna cost them their rent to use this space and be able to teach through that. So we've had people show us, I'm like, how do you achieve that? I'm coming with my friend to do a shoot, but could you help me? Oh, I'm nervous about the classic. I forgot my SD card, oh my god, like, you know what I mean? Like, to try and help out, but also now with the mezzanine and the curtains, if someone just wants to crack on, it's like, cool, okay, if you need us, we're there. If not, we can get out of the way and you can get on with what you want. So we don't do workshops, like it's been, people have mentioned it, and I mean, maybe there is there's something there, I feel like, but we haven't fully sort of delved in on that. But like it does kind of underlie and like the same with the books as well, which is for the people who want to kind of do something within the kind of art photography world. Is like, our idea was like, the books are here, and obviously, you know, on the surface level it's like, you like a book, you buy it, but the idea is that these are people that are, you know, similar to us, they're small presses, or they're other people that have done it themselves. So the idea is to go, okay, well, they printed it themselves, so why can't you? Like, you know what I mean? Or like, well, this person's doing his press out of Newcastle or Leeds, like, oh, we've got a really cool book idea, and well, why don't you talk to him and open that door? Because otherwise they wouldn't know these people exist without some serious internet stalking.
Does the uni hook into you?
A little bit.
A little bit.
So obviously we're still, because that's how I met James. Because he was
Yeah.
So we still have good relationships with a lot of the staff that were there while we were there. I'll talk more off camera. Something else. But yeah, they do. If we send them like, hey, we've got an event going on, they do push it to the studio, like the students. So we've seen a few turn up and come through, and then they do their Changing Futures week every February. So we just did a talk. We've done a talk pretty much every year to students because they asked us to come in and do stuff. So we do get somewhat involved. And there's another, like I said, off camera, there's another thing that's kind of up in the air, kind of might happen, might not, but obviously the uni's the way it is, and it's all a bit kind of, figuring out, because there's whole heap of stuff there. But yeah, we, like, wanted to do more stuff for the uni. Produced a podcast for the uni for the teaching course, which was another kind of thing. So yeah, there's a few bits there, but it's also, like, just figuring out what we can offer, and the obvious thing is the exhibitions and the bookshop for especially the students of like our course and the other visual arts courses. It offers a space that's away from the academic space and somewhere that's like, okay, something is happening here that they can engage with. Because the problem was, it was like you're at uni and a lot of people, like, they go to London because, you know, there's some sort of art show or art event on every day of the week if you wanted to. There's a problem here, it's like it can become very sort of like, okay, I've got to produce all this work, but to produce artwork you have to be somewhat inspired to have an idea, so you need to engage with people doing creative things, which if you can't find those people physically, you're left with searching online, which pushes you down very sort of like established routes. So you need to, obviously, like, there's masters of any craft that deserve to be researched and acknowledged, but you also need to know what's happening, like, right now, to be able to be like, okay, so people are already playing off of those ideas from the 70s and 80s, and what am I going to do that's going to be the next part? Because you can't just, we can't just turn into clones of people from the 80s, because you know, so eventually we have to move on a bit. We have a next wave of, you know, these masters. Which in photography I do have a fear that we're getting kind of, photography established itself in the art world in like the 70s. It started to become accepted. Before art galleries wanted nothing to do with photography. And then you have kind of like a few key like schools of photography that have popped up throughout history, and like now we've kind of internetized everything. I'm very worried that the new people that are coming through won't get put into that kind of like hall of fame, if you like. We'll end up just always referring back to the 20th century as like, these were the greats, what can you do in response to that? As you'd hope by like 2150 it would be someone who was doing something in the 21st century that people are like, oh, okay.
But there's so much image out there. How do you select now? You know, because there was, you know, 20th century photographers were it was the guys who had the Hassan.
Well, I guess photography kind of curated itself in that people had to afford to be able to do it. It's now you pull out your phone. It's totally, you know, democratized, which, you know, was an idea popping up in like the sort of
Kodak.
80s. Like William Eggleston, kind of the democratic for it, all of that sort of stuff. So that idea was already kind of in place from the beginning before, you know, it's now a phone in your pocket. You can take a picture that, you know, can be of a standard to put into, you know, an exhibition or a book or something, and is worthy of like interrogation. Photography is also fascinated with like vernacular and found imagery and stuff, because there's so much not created with an artistic intention, but still is like, okay, what do we do with that? Like, what does this mean? Because it's still, it's created. It's not like a painting that someone has to sit down and like, if you don't have the skill there's a lot of happy accidents in photography, and that's what makes it unique from other mediums, is that it is instant and it is...
Well, it's become instant.
Yeah, yeah, much more instant.
Because it wasn't...
Well,
I mean, I've worked with
true.
photographers and we don't see anything for ages
Yeah.
until they get to a dark room. And if you work with Super 8, that was like 2 weeks for 3 minutes. So exciting.
Yeah.
It was so exciting that, to get hold of a Super 8 camera and kind of make film, which you only had that amount of time to play with, send it away and it would come back. I mean, you didn't know how it was. But I remember, you know, when this came out, it was just like, I ain't using a camera anymore. I remember photographers saying that to me, just like, you just don't need to do it anymore, Michael. And it was just like, yeah, but we produced such great photographs. He just went, it's changed. But very quickly, in the 90s, really quickly, people working with designers were just like, just give us a snapshot and I'll make it into something else. Who was that? 2 guys who opened bars in Liverpool. Bar? Was it Bar? Guys who opened that, Miles, designer. But there was a whole patch of photographers and designers in Manchester, and paper was really exciting because you couldn't see it there and then, you had to kind of take it away to see what might materialise in the dark or the red. Yeah, very exciting. And the first time I ever saw it kind of blew me away as a teenager. FE College, really brilliant.
But I think that changes for photographers, like, and when I was at uni, a lot of them was like, because our uni course here is very sort of like vocational photography.
Yeah.
More, so it's meant to be a broad course that concentrates on a bit of everything. But for people who like, more and more photography jobs are disappearing because people can just do it on their phone. So it's like, how does it shift? Because in theory, those really boring, quick things that like, because you know, photographer in the 80s wasn't getting excited about having to do things that are like quick, boring, snapshotty stuff. So how do we use that to make stuff that is more fun and interesting, and rather than trying to keep up with that and you know, destroying the craft in the process? It's like the same with everything, but also with the amount of noise that's produced as well. It's like, how do we delineate between what's good and bad? But on one side, that's like a nightmare for curators. On the other side, it's really interesting as, you know, a viewer, because there's so much out there, and you're allowed to kind of make your own. Which
I mean, how many of these books would have been produced in the 20th century?
Oh,
as in all of them?
Like, probably, or I mean, even to the opposite end, none of them. Right? It's like, because you know, now they can go and print it online, or like, you know, like, you know, you have small presses now that are kind of totally different than what a publisher used to be. That one's really cool. That one's sent down from Village, which is in Manchester. They produced as part of an exhibition, but the artist is from Liverpool.
Right.
And there's like a kind of, it's kind of stuff found in like a junk drawer, and kind of replicating a lot of what you talked about with that sort of rough northern kind of hope for something better, but made, I think it was called budget brilliance was a term used in one of the just the idea of what do you have and what can you make from that. And it's just like, you know, these scrappy collages, and then the fun idea of like the cover comes off and it's got the foreword and it folds out into a big poster. Like that box of books we got from Manchester, there's a few different titles in there, and they all have these little embellishments that kind of fight back against the printer online. There's only really 2 kind of styles of binding you can use, but it opens up the door to be like, even if you have to use an online printer, you can also get a poster that you can fold up around it now, and you can get a sticker that you hand apply, because a lot of them are runs of, you know, maybe those ones are a little bit bigger, but a lot of the runs of these books like are sitting between like 50 and 350, which is a lot more manageable to do sort of like hand embellishments or unique features that in back in the day where you'd have to run like at least a couple thousand. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So it's it's redefining and bringing in as many kind of different aesthetics and ideas as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's like we could go the other route and try and decide like no, we like work that looks like this and that's all we're presenting, but like what good does that do in a town that's full of individuals that have their own ideas?
Yeah.
Be a bit more open and
as every town is.
Yeah.
Really. It's good, I like it. Really good.
And just growing outwards.
What else do you want to talk about?
I was just about to ask you the same question.
I'm alright, I mean I sort of feel like I spoke at 1,000,000 miles an hour and I'm not quite sure whether there's any fucking sense there.
No, there's a lot of good stuff in that. We did 2 hours, so
yeah.
I'm happy if you're happy.
Yeah, I'm kind of rinsed.
Awesome.
Quite interesting.
Right.
There was a guy who came for dinner, this was a story actually, there was a guy who came for dinner, the first dining event that we did in February, and he stood there and he went, he sat there and we'd gone through dinner and I think I was bringing in the desserts or clearing up something, but it was kind of towards the end of the evening. He went, I've got a photograph of someone for you. And I kind of went, what, is it my dad? And he just went, no, it's me. And he showed me a photograph from a show from the beginning of the 90s that I did in Bradford, and it absolutely blew my brain, and it was him.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he lives on my road.
Oh my God.
And it's a photograph of a guy falling really slowly on a cable as an angel with a red flare, and it was a nighttime show in a place called Little Germany in Bradford. And Tony had come along and kind of gone, can I get involved? I live in Bradford, We turned up from Manchester as an outdoor performance company to do a show called Psychopolis, which is City of the Mind. So we started off with Alice in Wonderland. You followed Alice through her mind and just kept meeting very strange moments. And it was quite a big show, right? Quite couple of acres maybe, up a hill. Loads of things going on. So this angel falls down, meet Alice, walks through a golden curtain. I think there would have been a waterfall of fireworks at some point. Walked into the finale of the show, and it was Tony. And time hasn't been great for either of us. And we just looked very different. I didn't know who it was, and it absolutely spun my brain, Joe, because all of a sudden I had a history. I had a history in the room that my history is the food library here. And Tony's kind of going, oh no, he's done this and he's done that. And it was horrendous. It was an Ian Wright moment, the footballer who cries at everything. And I couldn't help myself. It was very emotional for me. And it was quite an amazing moment, because he just went, that's what you did. And I went, whoa, that's what you did. I didn't fall upside down as an angel with a red flare. And he's sitting there, and he's on the road, and it was that thing. It was like, we've lived there for quite a few years now, and we've never even seen Tony. We've never crossed each other on, do you know what I mean? I've never seen him on the road. And it's kind of like, this is madman, do you know what I mean? Really what we should be doing is knowing the people that we live on the road with, because it makes for a safer environment for us to live on, social cohesion, neighbourliness. And his partner has been following. I'd seen the building come to life and had been in, checked out what we're doing, follows us on Instagram. And I'd thrown up this picture of him falling down the side of a building. And she went, oh, that's you. And he went, where's that from? He just went, it's this guy called Michael Mayhew. He just went, oh my God. that's like 40 years ago. It's the 90s, the 20th century, as you so rightly placed it. I feel quite old now. In the 20th century, yeah, all of those. I suppose photographers would talk about photographers in the Victorian period being in the 20th. Yeah, so in the 20th century, that's where we met as an angel, and he also talked about how it brought people together. I mean, it was life transforming, these shows that I used to do in Hume. And just kind of pull together and give structure and just say, yes, build a boat, but make it 40 foot, not 6 foot. Let's really go for it. And let's work in environments where we shouldn't be, which I kind of think I'm doing with the food library. We shouldn't be in Queen's Park, and maybe we shouldn't be in Northampton, maybe we should be somewhere else, and maybe we could be doing this somewhere else, and blah, 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 blah. But there's a guy that I know who ran the farm when I was a student. He runs a place called the Husbandry School now, John T. Williams, and he just went, you are the most important place, because you're growing food and working with food in a really high standard, but where you should be is in an urban space. So that was really interesting. But that photograph haunted me on a phone, but it was taken on a camera.
Right, yeah.
So it was paper. Do you know what I mean? It was a paper photograph that someone had taken from the show, because we documented it, but it would have been on paper. I have scanned it in, and it's now on his phone, and he saw it. It was a great journey, do you know what I mean? Because it was just absolutely blew my mind, and my past just spilled out onto the table of, oh, we thought you were a chef. Well, I am, but I have a background in doing really big outdoor performances and standing nearly naked in stages. Fabulous youth, as they should be. Very naughty, wrapping my head in cling film. Cod pieces at this ICA. Yeah, really good times. But it is good to be in. This is important. The bookshop is important to have in Northampton. I hope you keep going for it. And I enjoy that where we are. It's quite fascinating. Terraced house with a basement and this room going on. This building kind of uncurling itself of what it might be. Really good. Got a good year ahead of ourselves with fire foraging fermenting. We're doing residency at Hideaway for solstice, and dining events and slow food Sundays. What do Italians eat for lunch? Great question. Not Yorkshire pudding. Thanks, Joe.
No, thank you for
really good fun.
Yeah.
Do visit visit PHOTOMAFIA.
Visit the food library as well.
Visit the food library. We're here, just round the corner. Actually, we're neighbours. Will popped around.
Oh yeah.
It's Will, not Bill.
Oh right. Okay.
What is it? Is it Bill?
I've always known him as Bill.
Yeah, Bill. That's good.
Yeah.
He's got these signs with Goodwill, and I went, oh, maybe it's Will. He's popped round to us. I'm going to go round to his. But he kind of went, oh yeah, look at this, there is a line going on. So he's quite excited about that. I want to go and have tea with him on Thursday, maybe, if I can get the time to do that. But we're going to do a poster thing.
Okay.
Flood the zone, because he does posters.
Yeah, it's always a recent one, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of went, it's just negative that, you just throw the fire into the wood, do you know what I mean? It's like you're an angry teenager, get over yourself. I just needed to do it, and I just went, it's not offering me anything, I just get angry with America, and actually most countries could do with being intelligent, more intelligent, really. I mean, it's like, what? So it was flooding the zone with positivity. He kind of went, could we do a poster workshop in the building? in your building, because you've got a massive table, and I went, yeah, so we can do that, and we're going to look for quotes of positivity. One being, I quite like quotes, gives you a strong sense that you know what you're talking about. I didn't actually, but we got into situationalism and sloganism from Paris 68. So that's and then we've got our beer mat that we could go and have a beer and talk about it. Sure. Not now, but we could do. I've got beer mats in my building. You could come and just have a beer there. But the beer mat thing. I do want to make it positive.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I kind of went, do we do it on food? Could I get money on food? Do we talk to Joe about, we'll get you through an Arts Council grant, which is so fucking torturous, because if you don't get it, you feel like you failed. I think we should just pop around and see beer mat people. What you flood the zone, I mean, food for me is very beautiful. I just think they're black and white images of just sort of, but it's about promoting food. But you might go, yeah, but I want to do. But I think we've got an outlet, and I think the names not to be mentioned would. If I get on with him because he's coming for dinner, then he knows who he is now, but he'll never watch this because he's only watches Facebook. Would be a great thing to do, I think. I just think there's an outlet, but it is, how do you flood the zone? And the zone has been identified as this kind of this. Then how do you how we talked, Will and I talked a lot, Bill and I talked a lot, I will check it out with him this because it's great that you're confused. How do you flood the zone? How do you kind of work locally and flood that zone, and how do you subvert the people who have subverted alternative thinking? That's what's happened. We have been subverted. These spaces have been subverted. Photography has been subverted because it's only certain people will get their images looked at. And that there is a great rallying call for cultural, political, and social change, which has happened, which is happening, but it's swinging to the right. And I think that the right have subverted the left wing on a massive level. So how would you subvert that with really positive things that enable people to kind of, I'm not really giving a shit about people feeling good about themselves, it just helps for a healthier place to live. But just kickstart something in them. Do you know what I mean? Curiosity does not kill the cat. How do you just flood the zone with possibility and potential of something, of things that are happening at the moment which are so crippling on so many levels, because we're either living on a planet which is going to fucking blow itself up, or we're living on a planet which is going to crumble with climate change. Maybe it's going to happen all at the same fucking time, but I don't think people should be thinking it's going to be next week. I think that's bollocks. And how can you flood the zone with something that just makes people go, fucking yeah, that's great.